Pregnancy centers in Illinois can face new fines if they lie or deceive women seeking abortions. It's at the center of a new law Governor J.B. Pritzker signed just this week. Deon Broxton is at the Planned Parenthood in Fairview Heights looking into both sides of the issue.
David, when women come to this Planned Parenthood behind me, they might encounter people on the outside who try to convince them not to get an abortion and seek other options. While the state says sometimes those people on the outside use deceptive practices to convince those women not to get an abortion. But those who consider themselves anti-abortion advocates say they want to provide women with alternative options and not have their free speech violated.
All of these other states are either restricting abortion or completely eliminating abortion in their states. So Governor Pritzker and the abortion lobby is trying to become the place in the Midwest for abortion.
Ryan Westbrook is calling out Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Attorney General Kwame Raoul for a new law he says violates Coalition Life's First Amendment rights. The anti-abortion organization's mission is to end abortion through counseling and other methods.
We actually get to meet these women at these abortion facilities, and we've seen numerous of these clients turn around and leave and decide not to go through with the abortion.
Thursday, Governor Pritzker signed off on expanding and clarifying Illinois consumer fraud laws to crisis pregnancy centers.
For decades, these centers have targeted Planned Parenthood of Illinois patients with offers of free services like pregnancy tests or ultrasounds. The goal of these centers is simple. They're trying to get people in their doors to stop them from having abortions.
During a press conference Thursday, Planned Parenthood and state officials called these centers, which are often supported by groups opposing abortion, deceitful.
Many of these fake clinics provide misleading and medically inaccurate information. Abortion causes breast cancer, and abortion will make you infertile. These things are simply not true.
Don't lie to people. Yeah, don't lie to people. Don't take people away from where they were intending to go.
We here at Coalition Life have never been deceptive and certainly are law-abiding.
Thursday, officials cited reports about these centers frequently reaching their desk. A number of websites identify these so-called fake or faith clinics across the state. Several are located in the Metro East like Mosaic Health.
They go out and they show these options, they talk with these women, and they want to provide free resources for these women.
Besides free resources, Mosaic's website says it doesn't provide or refer abortion services, something Westbrook considers free speech.
Based on our strongly conservative viewpoints and religious freedoms, not going to refer a client to an abortion facility. And so we're going to omit that piece of data, and certainly the Attorney General may come after us and other pregnancy centers because we are doing that.
Now, pregnancy centers have won in court before. A federal appeals court stopped the 2016 law requiring centers to provide information on where clients could get an abortion. That trial is still pending. But the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 2018 a similar law in California was unconstitutional. Live in Fairview Heights, Deon Broxton, News 4.
A story we